Tal vez de las mejores entrevistas que haya hecho en mucho tiempo. Hablé con Jeff Mann, un diseñador de producción que trabajó en un montón de proyectos. Voy a ir subiendo las distintas partes a medida que pasen los días, arrancando con Tropic Thunder porque me contó para mí una de las mejores anécdotas de esta película, que tiene que ver con ese icónico momento de Tom Cruise bailando. Hablamos de cómo fue que surgió ese personaje llamado Les Grossman, de cómo se inventó y cómo se produjo esa escena de baile, y algunas cuestiones referidas a la improvisación y cómo es trabajar con Ben Stiller como director, todo en este informe sobre Tropic Thunder.
We now return to Mira Akian and Contre with our latest interview.
I got to join because our schedules worked out to where we'd fly to the compound in the Huey, in the big Vietnam era. So the doors open, sitting on the ground, flying from the North Shore of Kauai up to the heroin compound for like maybe a week and a half. The timing worked out to where that could be something that happened where Alan Perwin was taking us because we were using that picture ship and they didn't leave it up there at night. So anyway, just another kind of like, you know, pinch myself, like I can't believe that I'm, you know, getting paid to do this.
Oh, you down me, Foley? I'm sorry, can we cut?
So Tropic Thunder was, you know, Ben and I had never worked together before. Ben, you know, it wouldn't be a surprise to anybody if I said Ben's a particular person. He, you know, has high standards. He is a bit of a perfectionist, and he wants to, you know, kind of feel that people are striving to, you know, improve and better, and like that there's, you know, and I've always been that kind of person. I'm always thinking about what elevates the joke, the environment, the composition, you know, like whatever it is, like there's something additive that you could suggest to just continue to try to elevate, right? And, you know, like the script is awesome as a template, and then like what can I bring that, you know, that hadn't been considered, that, you know. And so one of the beauties of working with Ben, our long relationship, is that I have an audience, you know, and I've earned his trust over a long time to kind of like be able to make suggestions that are listened to, whether they're not always accepted, but, you know, my success rate's pretty, you know, the percentage is pretty good of ideas coming to the table. So, and making it in.
The movie they think they're making.
Exterior, rainforest, dusk, cut to a frightening jungle.
Isn't a movie anymore.
There's a lot of improv with, I would say that between Robert and Jack and Danny McBride, that those guys were probably the top of the kind of, you know, improv chain. And Ben's willing, you know, he's capable, but as the director, I would imagine as a director who's also in front of the camera, that it's that, you know, kind of tracking all those things and being like kind of an improv wizard, or, you know, and he certainly tried things and things made it into the movie. One of my favorite little surprise moments was when he's like losing it in the jungle and he's freaking out. That moment where that little praying mantis that he's talking to that flies into his face, like that was for real. Like he just found that praying mantis and it flew into his face.
Hello, Mr. Mantis. You're beautiful.
He had you know, there's other actors, I don't know if it's a luxury necessarily, but they weren't carrying the burden of directing the whole, you know, and tracking and thinking about, you know, editorial and so on and so forth. They had a little more freedom to probably do that, you know, with Bennett behind the camera, or, you know, as a director. So, yeah, there's a bunch of moments like that. Hopefully there's always moments like that when you're making a movie where little happy accidents and little moments that are surprising to everybody.
Award winner.
Critically acclaimed Australian actor Kirk Lazarus underwent a controversial procedure in order to play the platoon's African-American sergeant.
Robert is a force of nature, you know, like, I don't think I've ever met anybody in my life, and I like to think that I can hold my own in a battle of wits with people, you know, like my sense of humor, whatever. But like, you know, he's a fucking samurai sword with quick-witted, observational, you know, like a nuclear, you know, blast. There was a lot of living the part, which is a little crazy, but and this for in Robert's world was before the first Iron Man came out, right? So he had finished shooting that. He had no idea what all this green screen nonsense was going to turn out like. He leaned into it as if his life, depended on it.
Couldn't have done it without you, Sloan. Really? No, dickhead, of course I could.
I mean, there's a lot of people that say that that's the role that kind of recalibrated Tom after some kind of some maybe little manic, potentially manic episodes, and that the kind of humble, the humility of putting himself and making himself look like that. I remember specifically that we were doing a camera test. This is a good story. The end credits of Tropic Thunder are Tom doing this little kind of dance, right?
Yeah. Did that amazing dance.
So here's the story. Here's the story. This is a really good story.
Heads up! Heads up!
When we were doing makeup tests, camera tests with Tom's makeup, right? A couple things happened. One was where he was looking at, he was doing this little shuffle in the fat suit and with the, the hair and the thing. And that's where he first said to Ben, like, I really want to, he was looking at the playback. He's like, I want big hands. I want to have like big hands. And so Ben's like, yeah, like big hands, like hair on the knuckle, like these, Diet Coke crushing hands, and so later when they were looking at the makeup test, and Tom's, of course, as everybody knows, like in completely vested, and he's there, and like he's watching the makeup test, and he has an opinion, he's like in it, he's embedded. But Ben was telling him like how much he loved this little kind of, like empowered, executive, badass shuffle that he was doing, And so they concocted this idea about him doing it in the credits. And so basically we were shooting at Universal. We had built the interior of his office, Les Grossman's office. And, and we were shooting inside the heroin factory and the interior. He hired a choreographer, Tom, on his own dime, and closed set, nobody could go in for literally like 3 fucking days. They were playing that song and nobody could go in and see what he was doing. And we'd have to wait and we'd have to cut, like Tom's gonna rehearse. We're like, they play the song, like just loud, right? It's going on like on the same stage. And Ben wasn't invited. Nobody was fucking invited to go see what was going on as far as rehearsals were concerned. And so the first time anybody saw this was when we were shooting it at the very end of the schedule in his office. We worked out these lighting cues and the stuff, and he'd been doing it to that track and stuff. So that was Tom, as far as like dedication, like took the germ of an idea of Ben thinking that was so funny and like fucking hired a choreographer to make sure that it was the maximum version of it and did all that.
Why you all in my ear talking a whole bunch of shit that I ain't trying to hear?
I think that everybody knew that it would be a potent surprise. And I think it was because people would be so blown away that Tom was willing to take the piss out of himself. Similarly, as Ben takes the piss out of himself with Tug Speedman. I mean, there's a lot of parallels in old Tug Speedman, like Ben's willing to look in the mirror, Yeah. And somehow that was Tom maybe looking in some version of a Tom Cruise mirror somewhere to become that person or whatever. But like, I think the insiders knew that the best version of that was as a surprise for moviegoers.
Yeah.
And so it was really just preserving it so that it was as, oh my fucking God, because so many people didn't even know it was him. Yeah. When you hear that had seen the movie and didn't know or weren't reading about it or just went, that they were like, they didn't even know it was him. And that was worth its weight, in kind of historical gold and having that be a true, get treat for the audience, for people going to see the movie. You can only imagine what the Les Grossman, hashtag Me Too stories would be in this fictitious world.
He deserves a spin-off, like of
Yeah,
Les.
so there was talk of a Les Grossman movie for a long time. It's been a number of years, but there was so much fascination and kind of people like, having their minds blown.
Yeah.
And of course, the conversation started around like the Les Grossman, movie. And I think Tom was totally into it and, all kinds of things, but it really, I don't know if any of your other kind of filmmakers that you talk to ever touch on just how hard it is to actually get something to happen in this industry.
Yeah.
Tropic Thunder.
There was a lot of heat stroke and there was a lot of mosquitoes, but Hawaii's kind of it's a little bit of a fake, threat because there's no snakes, there's no jaguars, there's no, there's bitey bugs for sure, but there aren't poisonous snakes and there aren't, other kind of killing, man-eating creatures floating around. But that doesn't mean that we weren't in incredibly hard places that you had to hike to through mud. We had so much rain and mud and vehicles stuck, and like where we ended up building the Golden Dragon compound was, we literally kind of had to, cut a road in the last, I don't know, 3/4 of a mile to the set, because it was down in this bottom of this valley. There was a ton of like, setbacks. Like there would be like that person's stuck. This, this we can't shoot today because they can't get the thing to the place and the person, and they got bit by a centipede, and so they're staying home. There's big centipedes, big poisonous centipedes like this fucking long. There was a time where we were shooting up at the compound, we called it, where Ben has a place on the north shore of Kauai, and this whole concept was him and Justin Theroux hanging out, talking about war movies, hiking around and being in Kauai, and they kind of came up with germinated this idea about Tropic Thunder. So it was kind of born in Kauai. So I think we made it. I think because my department generated it, but it was a Tropic Thunder. It was Ben Stiller's. It was Ben, but like as a skeleton, like his hair and his features were like it was Ben Stiller's comedy death camp. That was the one T-shirt I remember that was made and given out to people.